A brush with the strange. For work, I spend an awful lot of time on the road or in various retail outlets. As a consequence of this, I am a frequent visitor to their public restrooms. On a not-so-special average day, I arrive at a Target location first thing in the morning, just as they open. When I go in, I stop first to use the restroom. As I walk in, I notice a man standing at one of the sinks with the water running, and I see a shaving razor sitting at the side of the sink. This is not too uncommon. I've seen truckers shave and brush their teeth and things like that, but it is rare enough that I note it. The gentleman is approximately 20 to 30 years old, wearing what I would describe as the most normal clothing one could imagine: khaki pants, brown dress shoes, and a striped orange polo shirt. He's clean cut and has short, side-parted hair. I turn my back to him in order to use the urinal, and the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I simply feel something is off. I finish up and turn to find the man approximately 5 feet behind me, staring directly into my eyes, having apparently shaved off both of his eyebrows. It's difficult to describe his physical appearance at that moment. His eyes looked utterly vacant and empty, but his jaw was clenched and his hands were shaking. This is strange to admit, but though I am confident in physical altercations, not prone to anxiety or other flits of passion, he wasn't even holding the razor, which was not a straight razor, regular shaving kind, but I was fucking terrified. I never encountered something like this before. I think that on this occasion, I may be excused for leaving the bathroom without washing my hands. Disturbing. You want me to draw what? Last summer, I worked at a water park / hotel / golf course timeshare place. I was hired to draw caricatures in the hotel lobby, which was kind of a cool job. It paid really well. I fairly liked it. People like having their picture drawn. I drew a lot of caricatures over the summer, and I'll tell you what, you meet all kinds of people. Here's the story. One slow day, 2 ladies, fat, ugly, missing teeth, and absolutely foul-smelling, walked by with like a 10-year-old boy, and the 2 ladies were immediately excited about the idea of having their kid drawn. I think they were sisters. They seemed basically normal, chatted with me, watched me do a drawing, and waited for me to finish the one I was working on. Anyways, it came their turn, and we started talking again. People would usually have me do a theme to their drawing like, oh, draw us as Power Rangers or something. I asked the kid what he wanted his picture to be about. He didn't say anything, and his mother stooped down so he could whisper in her ear. She relayed to me that he wanted to be drawn as Godzilla. I was like, oh, okay. What, do you want to be drawn like fighting Godzilla, riding on his back, or what? He spoke to his mother again. No, he wanted to be Godzilla. Sure, like whatever, I guess. So he sat down in my chair, and I tried talking to him about what he liked. Did he like to play sports? Just random stuff that I would talk to people about just to keep them entertained while I drew. He didn't say anything, which is fine, cause some kids are shy, but this kid actually seemed kinda disturbed, like there was a reason he couldn't talk or something. That I can't say for sure, but these 2 ladies basically spoke for him and really enjoyed talking to me while they watched me draw. At one point, the mother of the kid got really close to me and said she really wanted to talk to me when I was done. I was like, okay? Her breath reeked so badly. I finished the drawing of the kid as Godzilla, and he said thank you, which surprised me. The 2 ladies laughed and looked over the picture and liked it a lot. The kid and one of the ladies left for the water park, and the mother stayed behind to talk to me as she asked. She said something like, okay, Now, I'd like you to draw another picture, but this one is sorta personal. A little concerned, I asked her to explain. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through pictures. She got uncomfortably close to me, had a big smile on her face, and said, "Ready?" I nodded, really weirded out, and looked down at her phone and see a picture of a stillborn child that looked like it had been dipped in blood. "Beautiful, isn't he?" the lady said. "I call him my little monkey because he looks just like a monkey." And she laughed, really, really loudly. I was speechless. I sort of slapped my hand on my forehead. It took me a while to respond, but all I could think to say was, all children are beautiful." Trying to mask how fucking shocked I was, the lady then said, "Well, I like you to draw him as a monkey." I didn't say anything. She scrolled to another picture on her phone, another premature baby with tubes up its nose, and the woman said, "And this was my little seal. He lasted 4 hours. Doesn't he look just like a little seal?" Of course, she wanted him to be drawn as a seal. Holy shit, so fucking bizarre. Her breath reeked of alcohol and smoke and just general odor, and she was laughing in my face. Without asking, the lady sent the pictures to my cell phone because my number was on the sign. I was so shocked that I could hardly put a sentence together. I'd said something to the effect of maybe because I couldn't help but feel bad for her. She said, "Great, we're here till Thursday," and walked away. I called off till Friday. The creep without a face. This is an experience from 2 years ago while I was a college student. I used to rent an apartment at a complex near the university. Unlike many of my fellow students and residents, I did not have a laptop. Unfortunately, I was enrolled at a creative writing course where I had to make use of a computer and a printer almost daily. Thankfully enough, our apartment complex had a communal computer room very few of the residences used. Between that and the year-specific digital room at our college, I was pretty much well set. It was around a month in the semester when I started running into problems. I usually used a specific computer at both the digital room college and the computer room back home. I chose ones which were obscurely placed as possible so there would be much less traffic to them. Not that there was a lot of traffic in either of those areas. It was first at the college computer that I noticed it. Usually, no one bothered changing wallpapers on these college computers, and we all copied our stuff onto PDs and deleted them from the computer. But now, whenever I logged in, the wallpaper would have always changed. This in itself wouldn't be a cause for concern, but these were usually very suggestive and twisted pictures. For example, there was one of an anime girl tied up naked and bleeding. This is one of the milder ones. I checked the other nearby computers to find that they were fine, and figured some psycho was using that particular computer, tried switching to others, but the same thing kept happening. I didn't pay much attention to it because, well, they're communal, what do you expect? But then one day, when I logged into the computer back at the apartment complex, the wallpaper had changed to a real girl in some kind of BDSM situation, clearly out of a porno. I may have dismissed this as well, except for the fact that each of the residents who use the computers have password-protected user accounts, and it shouldn't be possible for someone to log into mine and change the wallpaper. Not to mention, you need a resident ID to get into that area. I thought maybe it was some prank by a friend, even though I was pretty sure I hadn't given my password to anyone. I changed the password and moved on. But no matter how many times I changed it, the wallpapers didn't stop changing. I tried to shift computers, but like at the college, it didn't work. I was a little creeped out, but since I never did keep anything personal on either of the computers I used, and none of my other accounts or passwords showed signs of being tampered with, I put it down to some crazy prank by a crazy friend. It couldn't have been a general one because I talked to the residents and no one else had similar problems. Half a month or so after this begun, I found a virtual sticky note. On my college computer, it said, simply, "Hi." Well, it was probably just a student playing around, thinking nothing of it. I ignored it and went back to my work. The next day, there was one of a different color. I don't remember all of them quite as well as the first, short one, but it said something like, "Why didn't you reply?" I ignored it again. I'm a withdrawn person. I have very few friends, and I'm satisfied with that. I didn't want to start a random conversation over a computer, no matter how novel the idea was. The third note read, "It's rude of you to ignore me." I decided to shift computers once again, because this was becoming creepy, even though I thought I knew that the notes weren't actually aimed at me. The next day I found a note on my new computer asking me if I was trying to avoid them. I kept getting these notes no matter how much I changed stations, and after around 2 weeks of this bizarre occurrence, I stopped using the digital room altogether, preferring to stay up an hour later than usual and completing my work in the apartment computer room. It didn't take long for the notes to start popping up in the workstations there as well. Only now they were creepier, telling me things like if I knew how innocent I looked when I slept, or how they wanted to tie me up, and worse things that I don't want to say. I wanted to go to the police, but also didn't want to risk it if this was a friend playing a prank, so I asked all of my friends. None of them owned up to anything even after I mentioned the cops, so I went ahead. The guy who listened to my case was sympathetic, but maintained that this was someone playing a horrible prank. Thankfully, though, it stopped after that visit to the police station. After a month or so, it went out of my mind and I calmed down, thinking it had been a joke after all. Then, one night, when I was down in the computer room working on an assignment till little after midnight, as I walked towards the door, something caught my eye. On the computer right next to the door, written in red, huge letters across a white background, were the words, "I think you look pretty in red." Good thing I have a razor right here. The communal facilities at our complex operated on the card key system, and there was no attendant to lock up any of the communal rooms. We just swiped our resident ID cards while entering. On top of that, to get to my building, I needed to walk through a narrow, not very well lit back alley. I was effectively alone. And as that fact sank in, I sprinted out of the room and down the alley. I heard footsteps behind me, but it only motivated me to run faster. For a second, whoever was following me seemed to get closer as their steps get louder. But the sound faded away as I neared my building and a group of students who had been out late like me. My flatmate was in most of the same classes as me, and when I told her, she offered to go down to the computer room with me whenever I needed, despite not needing to herself. I also notified the apartment authorities and bought a laptop despite not really being fond of asking my parents for money and not having the funds to buy one by myself. This spawned a whole new set of problems. Almost every night, someone would toss pebbles at my bedroom windows and balcony. One night, I even heard knocking on the balcony door. The police in our area generally take an unsympathetic view of the woman's safety, and they told me clearly that it was just a harmless prank, and they could do nothing unless something actually happened. Sometimes when I returned home late, despite my best efforts, I'd see someone following me in the distance, just far enough that I couldn't see their faces clearly, and usually dressed in clothes and concealed their identity as far as possible. Thick coats and hats and hoodies that obscured their faces. I couldn't even tell if it was a male or if it was a female. If I sat at one desk in class for some consecutive days, there'd be a threatening or quasi-loving note left there. When I went to the cops, they once again said they couldn't do anything unless I identified someone as the culprit. For about a whole year, I lived in constant fear, dashing through dark, unpopulated areas and stretches of road, and avoiding places where there were only a few people present. I took to carrying pepper spray around and enrolled in a few self-defense classes. One morning in early March of last year, there was a simple sticky note on my apartment door saying, "Sorry, love. You'll have to wait a little longer." It was signed with a smiley face and none of the other residents admitted to it. Later that day, I found an unaddressed beige envelope in my mail slot. Inside were printouts of pictures, some of whom I identified as being the wallpapers I previously mentioned. All of them were nasty, but not as much as the other pictures of me in class, the computer lab, in my apartment, out with my friends, walking in the streets, pretty much everywhere. With them was a note that said, "Thinking of you. Always." Thankfully, that was the end of it, and nothing like that ever happened again, though I lived in fear of when he or she would come back. I've just got my master's degree this year and have moved back home, 2 states away from my university, and the creep whose face I'll never know. And I hope it stays that way.